Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we sift through a whole stack of sources, articles, research notes, and pull out the key insights. We do the heavy lifting to give you a shortcut to being really well informed. Today, we're diving deep into something incredibly important, something that touches all of us, John Bowlby's attachment theory. It's this really profound idea about how our earliest relationships, usually with our main caregiver, set the stage for everything, really. How we connect with others, how secure we feel, how we handle anxiety throughout our whole lives. And the insights today, they're drawn from, well, a pretty wide range, foundational papers, recent studies, all that kind of thing. So, okay, let's jump right in. When we talk about attachment theory, what's the fundamental idea? Is it just about babies needing comfort, or is it deeper, like biological?
Oh, it's definitely deeper. It's way more than just comfort. Bowlby saw it as a biological imperative. He drew a lot from ethology, studying animal behavior, and proposed that babies are basically hardwired, born with this innate drive to stay close to a caregiver. Think of it as a survival mechanism, pure and simple.
Ah, right. Like that imprinting thing with geese. Lorenz's work.
Exactly like that. Lorenz saw Gosling's imprint on the first moving thing. Bowlby argued humans have a similar, really deep drive for that closeness. It's about safety, protection.
Yeah.
It's fundamental for survival right from the start.
That makes a lot of sense. A biological need for safety.
Right.
So does this instinct just disappear as we get older? Or does it build something more, permanent in our minds?
No, it absolutely builds something lasting, and this is where it gets really interesting. These early interactions, they aren't just moments that pass, they actually form what Bowlby termed internal working models.
Internal working models.
Yeah.
Like mental blueprint.
Precisely. Blueprints or maps, yeah. They're these foundational ideas you carry around about yourself, about others, and about how relationships are supposed to work. What you expect, basically.
Wow. Okay, so these mental blueprints, what do they look like? Are there typical patterns? How do they usually form?
Yeah, generally they shake up into two main kinds of core beliefs about relationships. So on one hand, you might develop a positive working model. The underlying belief there is something like, yeah, I'm worthy of love, I deserve care, and, other people are generally trustworthy.
Okay, that sounds like the ideal.
It is pretty helpful, yeah. But then on the other hand, a negative working model can form. And that one sort of whispers, I don't really deserve love, and if I actually need someone, they'll probably let me down. Abandon me, maybe.
Oof, that sounds tough.
It really is. And these models, often totally unconscious, right? They're formed way back then, but they end up guiding your expectations and all your important relationships later on. Partners, friends, even colleagues at work, they become the lens you see interactions through.
That's huge. Knowing these early experiences basically create a filter for everything that comes after. So if these models are guiding us quietly, how did people actually start to observe this, see the patterns? That was Mary Ainsworth, right?
Exactly. She was absolutely key. Mary Ainsworth worked with Bowlby, and she designed this brilliant experiment, it's very famous now, called the strange situation. The idea was to put infants under a little bit of mild stress, like briefly separating them from their caregiver in a new room, and just carefully watch how they behaved. And from those observations, she was able to categorize these behaviors into 4 pretty distinct attachment styles. It gave a concrete way to see those internal models in action.
Right, the styles. Let's walk through those, because I think recognizing them can be a real aha moment for people listening. What does secure attachment look like? First in a kid, and then, well, how does it play out in adults?
Okay, so a securely attached child. When their caregiver is around, they feel safe enough to explore, play, look around. They might get upset when the caregiver leaves, that's normal. But the key is, when the caregiver comes back, they seek comfort, they're easily soothed, and they calm down pretty quickly.
Okay, seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And then as adults, this usually translates into people who can build healthy, balanced relationships. They're comfortable with intimacy, but also okay with independence. They generally trust others, have good emotional stability, and can handle conflict without, completely melting down.
Got it. So what about the ones who maybe struggle more with that comfort piece when the caregiver returns?
Right. That often points towards what's called anxious attachment, or sometimes ambivalent attachment. In this strange situation, these kids get really distressed when the caregiver leaves. But then when they return, the child might almost, resist comfort. They want closeness, but they might also push away or still seem upset. It's ambivalent.
Huh. Wanting closeness, but pushing away. How does that look in adulthood?
As adults, this pattern often shows up as insecurity in relationships. Maybe a strong need for reassurance, frequent validation from partners, sometimes a real preoccupation with the relationship, a fear of being abandoned. It's like they're always kind of checking, are you still there? Do you still love me?
Yeah, I can picture that. We probably all know someone like that, or maybe see bits of it in ourselves sometimes. What's the other side of that coin?
The other main insecure style is avoidant attachment. As children, these kids might seem oddly unfazed when the caregiver leaves. And when the caregiver returns, they often actively avoid contact or ignore them, don't really seek comfort. It's like they've learned to cope by shutting down their need for connection.
Wow, just shut it down.
Pretty much. And in adulthood, this often means avoiding real intimacy. They might seem fiercely independent, very self-reliant, maybe even to an extreme. Opening up, being vulnerable, that can be really hard for them. They often prefer keeping people at arm's length, like they've built a wall.
Okay, so secure, anxious, avoidant. And there's a fourth one too, isn't there? A more complex one.
Yes, that's disorganized attachment. This one's often linked to backgrounds where caregiving was really inconsistent, maybe frightening, or involved trauma or abuse. The child's behavior in the strange situation looks, well, disorganized, contradictory. They might approach the caregiver but then suddenly freeze or pull away. They might seem confused, fearful, dazed.
That sounds really difficult for the child.
It is, and as adults, this style can lead to more significant challenges. Difficulty forming stable relationships, problems with emotional regulation. There's often an internal conflict between the desire for closeness and a deep-seated fear of it. It's a very tough place to be internally.
So these patterns form so early.
Mm.
How much do they really show up day to day? It's not just about romance, is it? It must bleed into friendships, work.
Oh, absolutely. The connection is direct and honestly pretty profound. These styles become the default settings for how you navigate all your relationships. Think about it, your communication style at work, what you expect from your colleagues, how you handle disagreements with friends, even your approach to leadership if you're in that position. Well, someone secure might find teamwork and collaboration pretty natural. Someone with an avoidance style might really struggle with depending on others or maybe avoid deep professional partnerships. An anxious style might lead to needing constant feedback at work, perhaps. It really shapes our whole social world.
It's just incredible how far-reaching these early bonds are. It's not just some abstract psychological idea. It clearly affects so much in modern life.
Totally.
You mentioned earlier this connection to survival, this biological imperative. Does that link continue? Like, does our attachment style actually affect our physical health?
Yes, absolutely. The research here is fascinating. Stable, secure relationships literally act as a buffer against physiological stress.
A buffer. How?
Well, think about chronic stress. Often, insecure attachment patterns can lead to more relationship stress, right? Fear of abandonment, difficulty trusting. That keeps your body's stress response system, the whole cortisol pathway, kind of chronically activated.
Right, the fight or flight thing stuck on.
Exactly. And over time, that high cortisol level can suppress your immune system, mess with sleep, even impact brain areas involved in emotion and memory. Secure attachment, on the other hand, provides the sense of safety, allows for co-regulation of emotions. This helps keep that stress system in balance. It supports healthier neurobiology, lets the immune system function better. It's a powerful link between feeling emotionally safe and being physically healthier.
So, okay, let's summarize the impacts we're seeing. It hits our mental health.
Definitely. Insecure styles are clearly linked to higher risks for anxiety, depression, certain personality issues. Secure attachment is a major protective factor.
It impacts our physical health through stress regulation and immunity.
Yep, that buffering effect is real and measurable.
And it shapes our social skills.
Secure folks tend to develop more empathy. They're often more altruistic, better at teamwork, navigating social situations smoothly.
And obviously it underpins our adult relationships, romantic or otherwise. Stability, trust, conflict.
It's foundational. How much trust you feel, how you handle disagreements, whether you feel safe being vulnerable. It all ties back. It's the blueprint for our social lives.
Okay. But like any really big influential theory, it must have faced some criticisms over the years, right? What are some of the main ones leveled against attachment theory?
Oh, for sure. No theory is perfect, and attachment theory has definitely evolved in response to critiques. One big one, especially early on, was the heavy focus on the mother as the primary attachment figure.
Right, which reflected the times maybe, but isn't the whole picture.
Exactly. Critics pointed out quite rightly that fathers, grandparents, other caregivers play crucial roles too. And modern attachment research absolutely acknowledges that children form multiple important attachments.
Mhm.
Another criticism has been about whether the theory gives enough weight to, say, genetics or temperament, the child's innate personality versus the caregiving environment.
And culture, too. Does attachment look the same everywhere?
That's another key point. While the basic need for attachment seems universal, how it's expressed, what secure or insecure behavior looks like, can vary across cultures. So the theory needed more nuance there, acknowledging cultural context.
So, given these valid points, how does the theory stand today? Is it still considered central?
Absolutely. While it's been refined and expanded, the core insights the idea of an innate need for connection, the formation of those internal working models, and the different attachment styles, these remain incredibly influential. It's still a cornerstone of developmental psychology, clinical psychology, social work, really foundational.
Can you give examples of how it's applied now?
Sure. In psychotherapy, for instance, many approaches are built directly on attachment principles. Think of emotion-focused therapy, EFT, for couples. A big part of that is helping partners understand their attachment needs and create a more secure bond between them. It's about reshaping that secure base in the present.
Okay, so therapy uses it directly.
Definitely. And even in social policy, understanding the importance of early secure attachments has influenced policies around parental leave, support for new parents, funding for quality childcare, early intervention programs. It highlights how critical that early relational environment is for long-term well-being.
That's really powerful. Okay, this leads to maybe the most important question for listeners.
Yeah.
If someone recognizes themselves in one of the insecure styles, maybe because of difficult early experiences, is it like a life sentence? Or can these patterns actually change?
That's such a crucial point, and the answer is a resounding no. It is absolutely not a life sentence. Change is definitely possible.
That's really hopeful.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Well, our brains have neuroplasticity, right? They can change and adapt throughout life. So several things help. One big one, especially if there was early trauma or significant disruption, is addressing that trauma. Therapies like EMDR, that's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, can be incredibly effective for processing stuck traumatic memories. Or specific attachment-focused therapies, or EFT, which we mentioned, help work through the emotional patterns in relationships.
So therapy is a key route for many. What else?
Just becoming aware is huge. Re-education, you could call it. Learning about your own attachment style, understanding where it might have come from, and starting to notice when it gets triggered in your current life.
Yeah.
That awareness alone gives you power. It creates a space between the trigger and your reaction, where you can choose differently.
Recognizing the pattern as it happens.
Exactly. And then, critically, cultivating a supportive environment now. This is about corrective emotional experiences. Finding and nurturing new relationships, maybe with a really understanding friend, a supportive therapist, a stable and loving partner where you consistently experience trust, reliability, and safety. These experiences can actually help rebuild those internal working models over time.
Even pets. You mentioned pets earlier.
Arguably, yes, the consistent, unconditional, positive regard you can get from a pet can genuinely provide a sense of security and comfort for some people. It's about experiencing consistent, safe connection. These new, healthier experiences gradually create a more secure blueprint inside.
Okay, so summing this all up, the core message seems to be, yes, those very early bonds with caregivers are incredibly powerful. They deeply shape how we approach relationships, how we manage anxiety, how worthy we feel really throughout our lives.
That's the foundation, yeah.
And this is the really empowering part, it's not set in stone. The science now strongly suggests we can change. We can develop healthier ways of relating. We can actually restructure those internal working models, even if the start wasn't ideal.
Absolutely. There's tremendous hope for growth and developing what's called earned security.
Earned security, I like that. Okay, so to leave our listeners with something to chew on, maybe consider this. What small, consistent steps could you take, starting today, in your own relationships, maybe with friends, family, a partner, even yourself, or yes, even a pet, to consciously try and build a slightly deeper sense of security, not just for the people around you, but really, truly for yourself?